Have to get the word software ready here. Go to Job. Okay. Let me fix this compare view here. All right. We're live, everyone. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug. We're back. And Sister Josie's going to be doing Job 27 for us once I get the compare view ready. So please bear with me, guys. Let's see here. I think I'll do LXX with ESV just to make it easier. Actually, you know what? I haven't used ISV in a while. Let's use the International Standard Version for the Masoretic. Okay. All righty then. Okay, sister, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Ayub, Job 27, and I'm using the TS 2009 translation. And Ayub again took up his discourse and said, "As El lives, who has turned aside my right ruling, and the Almighty, who has made my life bitter, as long as my breath is in me, and the spirit of Eloah in my nostrils. My lips do not speak unrighteousness, nor my tongue utter deceit. Far be it from me that I grant that you are right. Until I die, I would not turn aside my integrity from me. My righteousness I hold fast, and I do not let it go. My heart does not reproach me as long as I live. Let my enemy be like the wrongdoer, and he who rises up against me like the unrighteous. For what is the expectancy of the defiled one when he does cut off, when Eloah takes away his life? Would El hear his cry when distress comes upon him? Would he delight himself in the Almighty, call on Eloah at all times? Let me teach you by the hand of El, that which is with the Almighty I do not hide. See, all of you haven't seen it. Why then are you altogether vain? This is a portion of a wrong man with El, and the inheritance of cruel ones, which they receive from the Almighty. If his children are increased, it is for the sword, and his offspring shall not have enough to eat. Those who remain of him are buried in death, and their widows do not weep. Though he heaps up silver like dust, and lays up garments like clay, he lays up, but the righteous puts it on, and the innocent divides the silver. He built his house like a moth, like a booth which a watchman made. He lies down, a rich man, but he is not gathered. When he opens his eyes, it is no more. Alarms overtake him like a flood. A storm wind shall steal him away in the night. The east wind takes him away, and he is gone, for it sweeps him from his place, and it hurls itself against him and does not spare. He swiftly flees from its power. It claps its hands at him, and it hisses him out of his place. Oh, a lot going on there.
Yeah, a lot. See here. I find it interesting that on the word version you were reading from, this is a key phrase there in verse 7. Just says unrighteous, like the unrighteous. I find it interesting that it doesn't have the phrase destruction of. I just find it interesting that they leave that out, because that gives you the context talking about not just that he would not be like the unrighteous, but that he would that Yahuwah would not rise up against him as the destruction of the unrighteous. So it's showing Yahuwah's wrath against the wicked. And I just found that interesting that it leaves that out.
That word destruction.
Yeah, destruction of seems to be omitted, whatever reason. And I don't think it's a translation issue. I think it's a manuscript issue here. So if I go to like any other, let's just see here for the heck of it. Let's go to ISV.
Frozen.
Frozen? Dang it. Dang it. Computer, why are you playing games? All right. Okay.
Not frozen on my end.
Ooh, that was a weird noise. What was that? Okay. All right. So the ISV says the same. My adversary like the unrighteous. It seems like the Septuagint is the only one that has destruction of in that verse on top of transgressors or unrighteous. So it would be talking about the destruction of the wicked, which I find interesting is left out there. Also, if you go to the next verse here, we have Alua or Eloah being used as a name, it looks like, or, being a substitution for, they're substituting it for Yahuwah here. We see that in the Hebrew text, it has Alua or Eloah. Now, if you look at the Septuagint with the Greek kurios being there, we know that that should be Yahuwah. So there's a little difference here with the Masoretic and the Septuagint, verse 8. Even the Septuagint with kurios there shows that Yahuwah should be there. So it should say, what is the trust of the wicked that he holds to it? Will he indeed trust in Yahuwah or be saved? ? So that's kind of interesting. And again, it's a little different in the Masoretic. It says when Yahuwah takes away, or when Alua takes away his life. So it mentions nothing about salvation in the Masoretic. And I find it interesting. They take out like half of that sentence. Right here, will he indeed trust Yahuwah be saved? So that's about a sentence that's taken out there. So will he, I'm going to make a little note here. The Masoretic leaves out, will he indeed trust in Yahuwah and be saved? So that's a whole sentence there that's left out. Let's see here. Then it goes back. Okay, so Alua, okay. Will he take delight in the Almighty? Or really calls upon him? Okay. Yet now, and here we go again here. It says, I'll teach you about the power of Alua. Masoretic has Alua. Yet now I will tell you what is in the hand of Yahuwah. Septuagint, and how I know that is in the Greek again, kurios. Okay. Kurios is never a substitution for Elohim or Alua, never. Kurios was a Greek word meaning Lord. So we know that, the Lord, all caps Lord. Okay, that's a substitution for Yahuwah's name. So, and by the way, if you guys want proof of it, I've found multiple sources showing that the earliest copy of the Septuagint we have today, not what's in, the modern Septuagints we have in our hands, but the oldest papyri fragment does have the Tetragrammaton and Paleo-Hebrew in the Septuagint. Like they carried over the Paleo-Hebrew Yahuwah and then translated everything else in Koine Greek. So there's an very old papyri that shows that in the earliest copies of the Septuagint, they did have the Tetragrammaton. But anyway, but as you can see here, there again, Yahuwah versus Alua there. Let's see here. Again, verse 13 does it again, substitutes Alua for Yahuwah in the Hebrew. And then you got the Septuagint says, this is the portion of the wicked man from Yahuwah, kurios, okay? And the possession of oppressors shall come upon them from the Almighty. And by the way, I know some might be asking me, how do you know kurios is a substitution for Yahuwah? All you have to do is go to the New Testament. Every time kurios is used, half the time, almost every modern restored name translator puts back YHWH when you see kurios, when it's referring to Yahuwah, almost every time. A perfect example of this is Romans 10:13. It is kurios there. So whether you have a restored name, King James, ISR, where you see the Hebrew letters of the Tetragrammaton put in Romans 10:13, the Greek has kurios there as the word. So most translators even know this. Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to find a cross reference.
Yeah, Romans 10:13 is probably like the most common one I know of offhand.
No, I was on something else. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, 1 Corinthians 4:4. First I wanted to Job 27:6. Shaul seems to say something very similar, but it's almost like he's coming from the opposite spectrum. You have Job 27:5-6. It says, "Far be it from me that I should justify you till I die, for I will not let go my innocence, but keeping fast to my righteousness, I will by no means let it go, for I am not conscious to myself of having done anything amiss." And so, like, granted, I don't believe that he sinned, but he was still trusting in his own righteousness. Whereas when you get to Shaul says something very, very similar. Corinthians 4:4. Starting in verse 3, 1 Corinthians 4, verse 3. "But to me it is a very small thing that I should be judged by you or by a human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself, for I am conscious of nothing, but I have not been justified by this, but he who judges me is Yahuwah." At least from what I remember of this chapter in the context, it seems that the reason why he is not conscious of anything in himself is because he's trusting in the righteousness of Yahusha rather than in his own righteousness. Not that he doesn't realize that he doesn't fall short in sin, because I think elsewhere he talks about, if you are, I think it was Shaul, if you say that you're without sin,
Oh, John.
It's John, okay. I'm sure he says other things, though, that he recognizes that
I do things I don't do. That to add to your point, to piggyback off your point, Paul later on, I think in Romans he says, I have this battle inside me, the old man versus the new man concept. I do what I want to do. I don't do what I do not want to do. I do, that type of concept is like you're battling with your sinful flesh, and like we right now, especially believers, to your point, are now we have that new man in us. So deep in our conscience, sometimes we sin and we don't even want to do it. We just lose to the flesh, essentially. And that's why it's a battle. That's why he calls it an inner battle.
I just thought it was interesting that you have him saying almost the exact same thing, but it's just from a different perspective.
Yeah, like a opposing perspective. And I think, again, Ayub at this point, like we haven't even gotten to the point where in this, I think it's the second to last chapter, he says, I never met you. I never really knew you until now. Like you never really manifested yourself to me until now. So the difference would be between Ayub and Paul is on the polar sides of the spectrum. Paul has really met him. He's known him on a very personal level. He met Yahusha in a vision. Ayub like really doesn't get that until the end of this book. So it's like, he doesn't really have that same understanding that Paul has about we should be trusting in Yahuwah's righteousness rather than our own works that we have. He says we have. So we do have works of our own righteousness, but we're not to trust in that. Because we see in Titus, in the book of Titus, to add to Brother Yahusha's point, you have Paul admits that we all have works of righteousness. That's all collected. That on the day of he opens the book of works, he's going to list off all of our works, whether good or bad. So we do have works of righteousness, but we're not to trust in them. We're not to trust in our own physical works of righteousness rather than Yahuwah's righteousness. And that's what Paul breaks down a lot when he's talking about, you guys have fallen from favor because you're trusting your own physical works as if that's going to save you. You're trusting in your own physical works. And you got to understand from Job's perspective, he doesn't really know this. Like he's coming from a heathen background. Number one, heathen ethnicity, heathen background, mind you, grafted in, doesn't really know every aspect of Yahuwah's character. And, he's lacking in some things like we all do. He's lacking in understanding that he can't be trusting in his works. He's almost like feeling entitled that he shouldn't be going through this because of his works of righteousness, his physical works of righteousness, and all that. So that's a constant theme throughout Job's book, is that he's trusting in his own physical works of righteousness rather than, having faith and trusting Yahuwah in his perfect righteousness versus our flawed, dirty rags of righteousness. Because even when we do have righteous works, that doesn't negate the times that we fall. So our righteousness of ourselves is flawed. And even the Levites were flawed. Even the best Israelite was flawed. And that's the point. So that's what Ayub, to Brother Yahusha's point, is not really understanding right now. He's not understanding that he needs to trust in the Father's righteousness. And you'll see later on, as we get into like chapter 40, 41, you're going to see how Ayub himself admits to Yahuwah. When Yahuwah comes to him in a whirlwind, he's going to say, I only heard of you by word of mouth, like by ear. I never really knew you. And like, even though Ayub is serving him and all that, he never really met him face to face. He never met Yahuwah face to face before. And Yahuwah reveals himself. And Ayub is like, kind of like, that's when he starts shutting up. He's like, okay, I think it's time for me to close my mouth. Because he starts realizing that he's, speaking about certain things he's not fully understanding of. And, he's kind of speaking out of terms sometimes when he's, complaining about how he's depressed and this and that. And, why is Yahuwah attacking him, and all that. So anyway, so just to explain what Brother Yahusha was bringing up, which is very valid. You have two different parallel things there, almost like a complete opposite paradigm of what Paul talks about with whether we should be trusting in our own righteousness or not, and all that. So I think that's about it. I can't think of anything else to really extrapolate from the chapter. Other than that, it's the same thing. Ayub goes into the whole destruction of the wicked, what's going to happen to the wicked, what's going to be their end, what's going to be their lot by Yahuwah, and all that. Even the things they amount to and they amass in their human existence, once they die, it's given to someone else and all that. Trying to think. So we got here. Okay, so we're about to do 28 and finish off with that. Let me just see here. Okay. Brother Yahusha, would you like to read?
I don't mind. Is there nobody else that wants to read?
Okay. Anyone else? If there's anyone else, last call.
I can read if you like.
Okay. All right, Brother Dennis. Sure. Yeah. If you could read chapter 28 of Job for us.
Okay. Indeed, there is a mine of silver and a place where gold is refined. Iron is taken from the earth, and copper is smelted from ore. An end to darkness he has set, and to every limit he is searching, the rocks in deepest darkness. He opens a shaft far away from people. They are forgotten by feet. They hang far away from men. They swing to and fro. Earth, out of which grows food, is turned underneath as by fire. Its stones are the place of sapphires, and it has dust of gold. No bird of prey knows the path, nor has the hawk's eye seen it. The proud beast have not trodden it, nor has the fierce lion passed over it. He puts his hand on the flint. He shall overturn the mountains at its roots. He cuts out channels in the rocks, and his eyes sees every precious gem. He dams up the sources of the rivers, and he brings to light what is hidden. Wisdom, where is it found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its value, and it is not found in the land of the living. The deep has said, is it not in me? And the sea has said, is it not with me? Gold is not given for it, nor is silver weighed out of as its price. It is not valued in the gold of Ophir, in precious Shunem or sapphire. Gold of crystals, not to be compared with it, nor is it exchanged for a vessel of fine gold. No mention is made of coral or crystal, for the price of wisdom is above rubies. Topaz of Cush is not to be compared with it, nor is it valued in clean gold. And wisdom, from where does it come? Where is the place of understanding? It has been hidden from the eyes of all living, and concealed from the birds of the heavens. Destruction and death have said, with our ears we have heard a report of it. Yahuwah has understood its way, and he has known its place. For he looks to the ends of the earth, sees under all the Shemayim heavens, making a weight for the wind, and measuring out the waters by measure. When he made a law for the rain, and a way for the lightning of thunder, then he saw wisdom and declared it. He prepared it also, and also searched it out. He said to man, see, the fear of Yahuwah, that is wisdom, and to turn from evil is understanding. Quite a bit there.
So
Wisdom
Doug,
is worth all gold and silver.
Oh, crud. We did this last week, didn't we? Crap. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I think I read 27 last week, didn't I?
yeah, let me see here. So I need to figure out this. It's fun now. I'm gonna have to figure out what chapters we didn't read yet. Then, because this is gonna be fun. Okay.
Well, I think moving forward, we haven't read any because I was just
No, I know that. I mean, Mom, like if we read 26, if we read I'm worried that we might have skipped a chapter.
I don't think
That's what I'm worried about. I know what would be forward, obviously, would be 29 and 30, but
no,
I'm more worried about in between if we missed any.
we had 26. The only reason we missed this, the only reason we did this again is because the last week 27 to 28 are not in the live section. Remember, because you had to re-record it and post it. So it's in the video.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, dang it. All right. I'm going to have to. All right. Well, that scratches that. But, it's always good to review, I guess. But this is probably not going to go up, guys, just to let you all know. I'll just re-share out the one we did last week since we already did it. The only thing I really have to say from what Brother Dennis read, I found it interesting that the word for destruction in the Hebrews Abaddon, which again is what destroyer means. And we see Abaddon being mentioned in the Brit Hadashah in Revelations, I think, what is it, 9:11? Yeah, 9:11. So I find it interesting that the Apollyon is also could be like actual destruction of itself. And death said, death said, so death talking. We did hear a rumor about it. I find that interesting. I've been looking more into this idea of death as a person, and definitely confirming what I believe to be the person death in the Brit Hadashah. Definitely it's confirming that. Even in traditions, they have Satan as the angel of destruction and all that, and as a destroyer of the Exodus 12, so on and so forth.
Another name for Nimrod, right? Shiva?
Yeah. Shiva is the destroyer in the Hindu religion. Yes, so Shiva would be referring to Nimrod. So it seems like the destroyer title in scripture seems to both refer to Satan and Nimrod at the same time. It's like it's almost like they're becoming one in Revelations 9, and that's the way I would explain it to someone, because someone would say, "Well, isn't that talking about the beast as a bad?" And yeah, it is. But I believe somehow Satan is involved in that, whether his ruach goes into Nimrod's body and possesses him, or however that happens. It seems like there's a connection, and there's multiple I wouldn't say historical, but cultural opinions that agree with my theory on it. That you have Satan as Samael in Judean tradition, the angel of destruction, and then you have early Christians, or even possibly Nazarene, if you go as far back to the early first century, believed in a connection between the angel of lawlessness, Satan, and the man of lawlessness, the beast. So there seems to be a connection there. Do I have proof that they're going to be one in physicality in the end times? No, I don't. But there seems to be a connection there. There seems to be an actual connection there in Hebraic culture, even in Christian traditions. This idea that they're going to become one. And a lot of the times, the reason I bring this up, a lot of times you see death as a person. It's not always an event. So you'll see death mentioned as a person or as an entity. And it seems like Satan, because he had the power over death, right, before Messiah did what he did, before Yahushua HaMashiach rose from the grave, Satan had the power of death. And Mom, what is that in 1 John where it talks about, it literally even says that part of Yahushua's mission was to destroy the one that had the power of sin or the power of death. I think it's in 1 John somewhere. That one of the biggest purposes of Yahushua manifesting himself was to destroy the works of the devil and all that. Let's see here if I can find that. Oh, whoops, I'm in the wrong one. What? Okay, hold on. Our advocate. Yeah, sure. It might be 1 John 3 is what I'm thinking. It's either 3 or 4 is where it would be. 1 John 3. It starts talking about
4 is about testing the spirits.
Yeah. You know that the Messiah was revealed to take away sins, and there is not any sin in him. No one remains in union with him, keeps on sinning. The one who keeps on sinning hasn't seen him or known him. Little children, don't let anyone deceive you. The person who practices righteousness is righteous, just as Messiah is righteous. One who practices sin belongs to the evil one, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason that the son of Yahuwah, here we go, 1 John 3:8. The reason that the son of Yahuwah was revealed was to destroy what the devil has been doing. No one has been born from Yahuwah and practices sin. This is how Yahuwah's children and the devil's children are distinguished. This is a really good chapter for those that have been blindly taught that everyone is Yahuwah's children. I would really recommend this chapter because it literally says this is how you make a difference between who is the Almighty's children and who is Satan's children. It straight up says it is anyone that practices righteousness, okay, is Yahuwah's children. Anyone that practices lawlessness is children of the devil in a spiritual aspect. So that's the two seeds being talking about there. So I mean, this is a really good chapter, and it ties in with Cain and all that, and how Cain was a child of the devil because he wanted to murder his brother. So do not be surprised, brothers, that the world hates you. I know all about that. I'm not a stranger to that. You know that we have passed from death to life because we love one another. The person who does not love remains spiritually dead. This is a really good chapter. Really good chapter when you talk about debunking ecumenicalism. Really good chapter. I really recommend it when you're talking about testing whether or not every human is Yahuwah's child. It debunks that very quickly. But anyway, I was just trying to show you guys from 1 John 3:8, one of Yahusha's big missions, his purpose was to destroy the works of the devil. And again, that's why his purpose was to destroy sin, because it's, that's the works of the devil, is sin. And it seems like there's a constant confrontation between Yahusha and this person, death, like constant enmity. Think about it for a second. He died, went to Sheol. 3 days later, he rose again. But during that time, it's an understanding that he defeated death, right? So death's not just an event, it's a person. Mm-hmm. So I find that interesting. So if that's the case, then, is there something going on we don't know about? When he was in the grave for 3 days, 3 nights, was he, taking the keys from Satan? Be like, nah, they belong to me now. Sorry, I have the keys to Hades. No. So even though I don't believe in the Greek mythology version of the Satan, I do believe that for a certain period of time, Yahuwah allowed Satan to have authority over death. And part of Yahusha's mission was to take the keys back. That's why you see in Revelations, it says, I was dead, but now alive again. I have the keys to Hades and Sheol and all that. So he took that from the devil and all that. But yeah, that's an interesting thing I want to look more into, is about the, Satan being called death and being called the person death. I think that's where modern culture gets this whole Grim Reaper concept from what I've looked into. The Grim Reaper concept seems to come from I would say more like distorted view of Satan. And it was probably originally based on some little bit of truth of Satan being allegorized as death, the person death, but then it became a lot more perverted and Kabbalistic to what these Yahudim who are Kabbalists believe Satan was like, dualistic and all that. But the verse that why I believe death refers to Satan as a person is because you have, I referenced this the other day, but just for those that didn't watch our study from the other day, you have, from the power of Sheol, I will rescue them. From the power of death, or Sheol, I will rescue them. Now, if Sheol is just a place where the dead lie, and it's not a person, that verse doesn't make any sense to me. The power of Sheol. Mm-hmm. Think about it. Does the grave of itself have power? I don't think so. It's a person. The power of Sheol, I will rescue them. From death, I will redeem them. If you think about it, right? Satan had the power of sin, right? The law of sin and death. Okay. So he's saying, I will, from death, from the person death, I will redeem them. Death, where is your place? Sheol, where is your destruction? my eyes will remain close to your pleas for compassion. I wonder if destruction there in the Hebrew is Abaddon. I'm just curious in the Masoretic of Abaddon's there. But anyway, so that's what I truly believe. I believe that Yahusha's mocking Satan here prophetically. He's saying, yeah, you got your little time where my people have been, under the law of sin and death, have been, they've been under your bondage, but I'm going to rescue them. You're going to be done. You're done. So I believe that's what Hosea 13:14 is actually about. I could be wrong, but I believe when you look at scripture, death sometimes is referring to Satan outwardly. Yeah. So, yeah. Hallelujah, sister. Yeah. So anyway, that's a study I would like to do with our group. Like, I don't know if we've done that before. We might have. I got to look at it. I think we might have done a past study about who. I think we did it with who is the destroyer of Exodus 12. We went through this. So if you guys want to know our viewpoint on that, because I know that's gotten confusing over time within the body of Messiah, some people even think that Yahuwah is the destroyer, which I respectfully disagree. And I put my opinion forth point with scriptures to prove my view of why I think the destroyer of Exodus 12 is Satan himself, and all that. So feel free if you guys want to check that out. It's called "Who's the Destroyer of Exodus 12." We provide multiple evidence in that study for that. But anyway, so it's important to understand though that death always sometimes in scripture is not talking about the event of death or the realm of the dead, because sometimes it's talking about it as a person, as an entity. So anyway, another interesting thing, I always say this, if you look at the Greek word for death, I believe, when Paul references it in 1 Corinthians 15:55-56, I'll just show you guys, this is the last thing, we'll end the recording here. Let's see here. 1 Corinthians 15, 55-56. So when you look at this and you look at the actual Greek word used for death here, it's kind of funny. If you've ever seen Marvel Avengers, this is kind of ironic to me. You all right, Mom?
Yeah, just swallowed something.
Oh
wrong.
no. So right here, by the way, it's quoted straight from Hosea 13:14 here. Okay. Oh, death, Thanatos, where's your sting? So I find it interesting because if you ever, if you know a little bit about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thanos is the mad Titan, giant Titan. I find that interesting for whatever it's worth. Another connection between Satan and Nimrod possibly. But I find it interesting. According to Thayer's, it can mean regular death. I would say that in this context, that would make no sense. That is just talking about the event of death in this context. Obviously, it's talking about a person that's referring to as death. Where's your sting, O grave? Because then it talks about where is your victory? So as far as I know, like death as like physical death does not have enmity with Yahuwah or with Yahusha, who has enmity with him, who would want to have victory over Yahuwah is Satan, as far as I could tell. So just that verse, that part of the verse right after it seems to allude to death being like a entity, a person. And so I just find it interesting. If you look at Thanos and all that, it kind of resembles Satan, with all the gemstones on his glove. How Ezekiel 28 talks about, he's bound upon himself. He took it upon himself to have all these stones on his breastplate, and he's hoarded gold in his treasuries. Just kind of interesting to me. It's kind of interesting. So anyway, hopefully that was for someone out there. I just felt led to talk about that for a brief moment. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I might leave this up as just a redo of it, and as a redux, maybe title it, Job 27 and 28 with commentary or something like that. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed me making a fool out of myself and doing the same study twice. But anyway, love all you. I love all you brothers and sisters out there, all of our mishpach out there. Have a great rest of your Shabbat. Shalom.